can start. Okay, and we are live. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this panel. We have Marguerite moderating today. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining and be here. I'm here representing the Blockchain Game Alliance, so I will take you through a quick introduction about what the Blockchain Game Alliance is, and then I will pass on the word to our speakers today. Okay, so I'm just going to get on to a few slides to show you and talk you through the Blockchain Game Alliance. Fantastic. Can you see the screen? Just checking. Okay, so the Blockchain Game Alliance, today we're going to be talking about modeling token economies with DeFi in mind. So the Blockchain Game Alliance is an organization committed to promoting blockchain within the game industry. Our goal is to spread awareness about blockchain technologies and encourage adoption by highlighting that potential to foster new ways to create, publish, play, build strong communities around games. We also strong advocate for diversity and more inclusivity of women in the industry. The Blockchain Game Alliance also provides an open forum for individuals and companies to share knowledge and collaborate, create common standards, establish best practices and networks. The Alliance core activities are networking, research and reporting, represent blockchain game companies, and advocate for blockchain in the game industry. These are all our members, which are over 150 members. So you see many logos in this space. And as we grow, there's going to be more and more joining. And I just want to take a moment to thank our sponsors for allowing us to carry on our activities and making sure that we still keep providing a space for everybody to talk about blockchain games and all the fantastic work that our companies have been doing. So as you've seen, we had a number of interviews coming up, and we had panels with industry leaders on video games and executives joining the Blockchain Game Alliance. We also had workshops on thematics that we welcomed into this space. So we had legal workshops and also decentralized gaming workshops. We had new members presentations. So every month when there's members joining, we'll give them an opportunity to talk about their project and present within the Blockchain Game Alliance. So expect every month to hear about new companies joining the organization. We also provide free speaking opportunities and other conferences. We now host most of our events online. So these are some of the most recent activities we had in 2020. So if you wish to join and present your project, please come forward and let us know, and we can try and arrange it for you. We've also launched recently a women panel conversation dedicated to women within the blockchain game space. And these are some banners from previous talks that we hosted. We will continue the series in August. We will resume that. And here we have all the speakers we had the pleasure to welcome so far. So it's quite nice to see how many women are actually in the space. So we're very happy to keep support in that sense. But without further ado, I just want to pass on the word to Marguerite, who's going to be moderating this panel for us today. And here's the agenda. So we're going to start with an introduction. So speakers are going to introduce one another and their projects. Then we're going to dive into the panel discussion, talking about what is a token and introducing different types of tokens. Then speakers are going to be discussing different benefits within the economy and how creating a token and what this means, their views and advices. And then we're going to open it up to the live Q&A. But if you do have questions, I would say just carry on, add your comments and questions, and then we'll pick them up as we go through this talk. But we're going to have a live Q&A session towards the end. Okay, so I am just going to be passing it on to Marguerite. I will leave you for now, and I will be backstage if you need me. Thank you, everyone, for joining, and I will see you very soon.
Thanks, Serena. Hey, everybody. Marguerite here, CEO of Blockade Games. We're developing Neon District. It's a cyberpunk RPG. And lately, I've been diving into the DeFi space as it has crossed over into the NFT space recently. So a lot of blockchain game companies are looking at the benefits of DeFi in the gaming space. I brought together some of the experts that I talk to all the time in DMs, trying to pick their brains. So I thought it'd be good for us to get together, just pull together the knowledge, what's possible today, and how we should be thinking about modeling these token economies and the tools that are out there. So if we could start with Cooper and Bradley and then Alex, and give a little intro about yourselves and what you do in this space.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on, Marguerite. Thanks to Blockchain Gaming Alliance. Everything that you guys do is awesome. I'm Cooper. I'm the editor of a blog called DeFi Rate. We cover all topics DeFi. I'm an active contributor to the Defiant. And then I'm also doing a lot of work in the gaming space through an esports style called MetaCartel. So definitely really passionate about centralized finance, trying to figure out how we can empower governance, and then trying to put a unique spin on that in different sectors like gaming through projects like MetaCartel.
Cool.
Thank you.
Cool. I'll go next. Hey guys, my name is Bradley. I'm a founder at Roll. Our design space is really focused on traditional communities. As well as Web3 communities. And what we see emerging is the economics of the web, bending more and more towards content creators and their community. So we're pushing forward this primitive of user-generated currency, or what we call on the consumer front end social money, that empowers users to own their community. And we're super excited to be here and just talk more about our space and what's going on. And thanks so much for having me.
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Alex Masmej. Thank you so much for inviting me, Marguerite. And so in the past year, I've done projects on the Ethereum application layers, covering all the 4 primitives, so like DAO with MetaCartel, which invests in startups, or marketing DAO, DeFi with under-collateralized DeFi for DeFi loans, NFT with Rocket NFT, where you can take a loan with the NFT. And the fourth one, of course, is personal tokens with the Alex token. And so I've done all of this for the past year. And right now I am a co-founder at a yet to be announced startup. So this is kind of like my role right now, kind of secret, but yeah, that's me.
Awesome, thanks guys. I guess just jumping into it with the Alex token, I'm curious so I'm guessing that you and Bradley at some point collaborated because you used Roll, correct, for that process? Could you tell me a little bit about, well, one, what is a personal token or the social money? I'd also love to hear, Bradley, about like how you got Roll going and that path. So maybe we start, Bradley, with how you started, and then we can lead into how you and Alex synced up.
Yeah. So I been in the space for 5 years. I started as a researcher at CoinDesk. When Ethereum was launched, I did this report called the State of Blockchain report, and was just fascinated by how communities were evolving. So we kind of put together this thesis that the sort of end state that communities would end up owning themselves and become completely independent of platforms. Believe it or not, the first issuer on Roll I actually met at VidCon. So her name is Laurel. She's in the ASMR space. So folks sort of whispering online and sort of giving the tingle sensation in your spine. So Laurel minted tingles with us. Laurel has over 1 million followers on TikTok and Instagram. And a lot of people in the space talk about the concept of progressive decentralization on the protocol level. I think companies and platforms like Roll can do that on the community level. So imagine bringing in very influential people in the Web2 space and sort of decentralizing their community in a way that the value is represented uniquely through their own social money, through their own personal token or community token. And so we've taken this to over 200 different communities. We're learning so much along the way. I'd love to sort of dive in and share more. And met Alex along the way. So believed in Alex early on, saw what was happening, and I'll just let him take it from there.
Yes, for sure. Actually, yeah, Bradley met me. I think we met each other in August or something. Like it was like 2 months in Ethereum, like last year. And it went super well. And we've done a ton of experiments since, from my first ISA to voting on my live. And there's going to be a new one actually that I'm working on with Cooper. I'm not sure if we can tell it, but yeah, basically so many things, even from even booking my time. Actually, just before that call, someone booked half an hour of my time, and I'm going to use it to buy back Alex tokens. So there's so many ways you can do. And so I guess I would sum up a personal token as being setting shares of yourself, whether it's your time, your potential, but most importantly, it's the perceived value of your community. I think this is the best way, because it's ruled by markets. And so whatever you do, it's still the markets that has the final say on how much is your worth as a token, I guess. Yeah.
Bradley, how many personal tokens have you issued so far?
Over 200. Yeah.
Wow. So we can't get the inside scoop of Cooper, your and Alex's secret.
No, yeah, we can say it, I guess. Well, I think there's a lot going on in DeFi with liquidity mining. And so I thought that it would be great to reward the people that believe me the most. And that doesn't mean just holding Alex tokens, but that means being in the Uniswap pool, supporting the peg of Alex tokens. And so I think rewarding people who put liquidity there with more Alex tokens and maybe other tokens, who knows, would be really great to do. And I think we're going to announce this, I think, next week or something.
I've heard from... Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, to add on to that, in the personal token space, all these tokens are so scarce, and it's definitely a lot of key contributors. They're not super, super deep networks at this point in time. So even for someone like Alex, which is debatably the most well-known personal token right now, liquidity is very thin. And so something like this is really important for when new people come in, they want to get involved with the community, they want to take a small position in Alex or something like that. Using these incentive programs to not only reward early contributors, but give new people a good way to get involved without facing slippage or something like that. It's kind of like a win-win on both sides.
Alex, how did you do your distribution initially?
So initially it was giveaways. So the feature that I use the most on Roll is, I think, called Reward, which is basically a giveaway, a free link. And so that may be able to basically drop it on Twitter for whatever thing, on other social media platforms like Instagram, just for fun, and to my family and friends. And then either people could resort to MetaMask if they are crypto native, or they could just keep it. And so this is what I've done pretty much. I've just given to people I care about and who care about me and my future. So that's how I've done it. And right now there's 250 people holding Alex, maybe a bit more. And since it's traded on Uniswap, this is one of the first things we did with Bradley. It's an open market, so the market gets their Alex, I guess. Yeah.
Great. Bradley, have you seen in this space, I guess, any other projects collaborating with you to build incentives or reward programs using DeFi?
Yeah. So we just started opening up our APIs. So we're probably going to have some announcements pretty soon. I don't see Roll building the next Twitch or SoundCloud or anything like this. Our purpose is really sort of just to provide some infrastructure for the next real generation of entrepreneurs to utilize what we've built so far and do those things. I think that's one of the more exciting things we're seeing. I'm super excited about a team called Abridged. So they're really focusing on sort of DAO tooling. And through a lot of conversations, we really could start to see social money as the sort of, if you can consider DAO sort of an end state, having your own social money could sort of be the beginning. So we're working with them on building a lot of different tooling for social money and communities. Something really exciting happened last week. So a friend of ours, Andrew Lee, announced his own social money called Karma. But he did something completely different. So people on Roll usually announce they create this own ecosystem of earning and rewards. We'll put it on Uniswap. So Alex kind of discovered this new primitive from the Web 2 world, which you could just sort of identify as memberships. But since the membership was on a bonding curve, each people that paid 200 Karma to get into this group, which you could say is a Telegram group. So originally we market made Karma at around 2 cents per Karma. It's around $4 to $6 to get in. It's now a few $1,000s to get into the group. And what's super interesting is he seems to have curated uniquely a group of people whose sole interest is really benefiting others in the community. And it's almost like the market selected this group in a way, right? People opted out of coming into the group. And you're seeing that reflected in sort of the price. So I think last time I checked, Karma is above $10 and has this 100 million market cap. It's extremely liquid. There's a lot of trading volume. And I think you could replicate this with anyone. So one of the most fun things we get to do is just look at someone doing one thing and kind of replicate that across the board. And yeah, it's so much excitement in this space. I would describe this space as probably too huge. It's probably the next social media in a way. There's going to be many massive companies that are going to succeed.
I have, so one of the problems I've heard when in talking about liquidity, providing liquidity, is that it can be pretty expensive for the issuer for there to be a money to withdraw, basically. Cooper, I know that you're really knowledgeable in this space of maybe some tricks that by using different DeFi tools to help provide liquidity, maybe on a smaller amount of capital.
Yeah, so I think that kind of what we were talking about with the Alex program, getting other people to contribute to that liquidity is super important. If you're the only one doing it as an issuer, you're going to quickly see either a lot of impermanent loss or be forced to add a lot of liquidity over time to keep that market stable, I guess, for lack of a better term. So definitely trying to open source that and utilize this decentralized permission nature of pools like Balancer, of pools like Uniswap. The cool thing about Balancer is that you can have pools which aren't 50-50 split. So in that case scenario, if you have a lot of your own token, but not a lot of ETH to get started, you can make an 80-20 pool and provide far more of your own token opposed to ETH and sort of bootstrap and kickstart a market with less capital requirement upfront relative to the amount of ETH that you have to provide to get that market started.
Yes, so sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, yeah, I was just saying, yeah, this is exactly what we saw with the Wi-Fi token or Wi-Fi token. I'm not sure how to say it. The pool on Balancer is 98%, 2%. So 98% ETH, I think, 2% YFI. And so people without knowing, when they enter that pool with USD or ETH, they actually buy YFI token. And so the price is intrinsically being pumped. And so this is a new token economics. So there's ways, as Cooper said, to make it as cheap as possible and enter as a small position, I guess.
Actually, that's as far as talking about tokens. So there's a lot of people that have no idea what YFI is. I'm hearing this all over my Twitter feed. People are curious because the people that get it are really excited about it. Does somebody want to, Bradley, maybe you would like to give us a high level of what is YFI?
I'm going to defer to another member of the panel.
Okay, all right, maybe Cooper.
Yeah, I'm happy to speak on that. So YFI is the native governance token for a platform called Yiren. Yiren is basically a liquidity aggregator. You can think of it as an automated yield farming platform. So it basically takes liquidity and sources it across different DeFi protocols. So lending protocols like Compound, Aave, and DYDX, or stablecoin pools like Curve. And it basically just tries to get you the best return on your capital. And what was unique about YFI is that Yiren was operating for about a year at this point. It was all bootstrap, no funding or anything. And this YFI token was launched with no pre-mine and no initial sale. This is pretty different from a lot of other DeFi tokens where 10% would be sold on Uniswap. The price would go up a ton because a few people got in. There was sort of a team or investor allocation. But with YFI, the only way that you could get it is actually using the liquidity pools and basically staking your proof of liquidity through the platform. And that notion of sort of like this Bitcoin-esque kind of model where no one was favored over anyone else kind of opened this really interesting discussion where the community really controlled this project. And we saw a lot of people get super involved with it. The governance forum is debatably the most active that DeFi has seen to date. The token's obviously really valuable because a lot of people were getting into yield farm, and that yield farming allowed there to be super, super high returns. So I think on a lot of different fronts, it was just a really cool experiment. And when people who were super passionate about yield farming kind of saw this really grassroots approach to it, they really just kind of caught storm and everyone really wanted to get behind it.
So I think touch on yield farming as an incentive for this whole ecosystem. Can you give me some projects that are really, I guess, pioneering that part of the space? And maybe what is yield farming as far as user experience? What does that look like as far as onboarding? And then what actions are you doing? Yeah,
I think yield farming definitely differs relative to project, but the core premise is just that you put your capital into a platform and it kind of goes to work to earn you more capital in return. So that could take the form of something like Compound, which is basically just depositing assets to be lent and borrowed by other people. That could be deposited into Balancer, where it's used as liquidity for the liquidity pools we were mentioned before. And then there's kind of things like Wi-Fi or other projects where you don't have to put capital in, but basically by utilizing that platform, you're kind of getting a residual benefit from doing that.
Where are people going right now to do yield farming?
Depends on like how deep you want to get with it, I think, right? Like I think that Compound's a really great, safe, trusted platform where the yield has become less attractive as of late, but it's super safe. You don't have to worry about any smart contract risk. Then on the other end of the spectrum, we have stuff like Wi-Fi, and more recently a project called MStable, which is partnering with Balancer to do this. And the cool part about yield farming right now is there's a lot of stacking benefits. So specifically for this project MStable, you provide liquidity to a Balancer pool. And in return for that, you not only get the Balancer governance tokens for being in that platform, you also get the MTA governance tokens for providing liquidity to their native protocol tokens. So we're seeing a lot of these yield farmers basically just like stacking yields and basically just like growth hacking, I guess, in a way, like their capital and what they can do with it.
So once we establish a community with social money, then there's sometimes these communities implement a governance structure. What are some of the best examples we've seen today, I guess, of healthy governance and maybe different options? Is DAO the only option? I probably haven't heard from you for a while, so I'll just jump to you.
Yeah. So one interesting thing we're doing with Laurel, who again has never held Bitcoin or ETH or really had a MetaMask wallet. So this is sort of our first experience. You guys have probably all seen probably different videos or sort of polls on YouTube or Instagram where your followers can choose your hair color or kind of what you eat or kind of these various things. And this is a form of Web2 governance. It's users having a stake or a say in the type of content that comes out. And when we talk about this idea of progressively decentralizing a community, this is something that's very familiar to billions of people across the web, right? Billions of people have participated in these types of things. You're following this individual online. You can't wait to have a say in, what color their hair is going to be in the next video. And you're that much sort of, intrigued or incentivized to sort of watch the content. The idea of starting with that as sort of a basic feature that allows people to sort of have a say within that community, utilizing social money, is the beginning of a very big play. And this is something we're kind of thinking very deeply about. How can we speak the same language as most of the people that use the web, while slowly transitioning them to Web3? So really focusing on how to speak the language of having people cross this Web 2 to Web 3 bridge.
I was just looking yesterday at Flux protocol and their engagement. That's a pretty slick UI of, if Alex, or do you want to talk about what Flux protocol is?
Sure. So Flux protocol is a prediction market website that is built on Near and not Ethereum, which is kind of weird for Ethereum community. But the reason why they're using this is because that's what they claim. I think when I talk to the founders is that the developer tooling is better and they can have liquidity bridges to Ethereum, I think, as far as I know. And so this is why it's like best of both worlds, because they can instantly settle trades, plus they get the liquidity from Ethereum. And so they get also better dev tooling, which in turns gets into a better user experience. And so it's really interesting to see. I don't know many teams outside of Ethereum building cool things in crypto, but this is definitely one of them.
It is. It's also very social. It's very mainstream. The design of it is very mainstream, just like fun. Some examples are like an Elon Musk question and betting on that. Are there any other projects like that really looking to engage a social community where the social money could tie in? I'll go to Cooper.
That's a good question. I think that everyone's trying to make their governance more social, and that's kind of one of the things that we're seeing as a problem right now, is that really governance for a long time has just been very technically focused. It was on the base layer protocol where you had a lot of know-how about inner workings of these things. But now that we're trying to broaden the horizon and make these governance decisions more impactful to the end user and allow them to be more accessible for people who don't have a deep understanding, that's where I think governance can be cool. So really just any platform that's trying to make their governance more applicable or more accessible, I think is a step in the right direction. And I'm pretty confident that we'll see governance-specific platforms and dashboards come up where you can basically be participating in governance across a ton of different protocols with little to no on-ramps or barriers.
Have we, Bradley, seen any projects starting to combine these two, the social money and governance, in a way that is getting traction?
Yeah, so I think there's sort of like disparate people in the space are sort of coming together. I think Alex could maybe talk about his sort of voting experience, sort of putting that together with Austin Griffith, who's just been a huge sort of impact in sort of Web3 and putting together a bunch of tools. The team at Abridge is sort of thinking very deeply about this. I don't think there's sort of one platform that we've sort of found thinking deeply about sort of social governance, but I think there's enough tools in the space to kind of put it together. And I think you'll start to see things sort of next year, and even in the next quarter.
Yeah, Bradley. I guess, or not Bradley. Sorry, Alex. With your initial launch, I heard that you had a pretty cool onboarding experience with your voting. What were some of the first questions that you asked your community, and how have you seen that engagement grow?
Sure. So yeah, as Bradley said, like you're as valuable as your community is, and so my community, which is the Ethereum community, really helped me build new use cases for Alex. So the first one is Abridged, who built a chat that's only reserved for Alex holders. So you have to prove that you own one Alex at least to get in that chat. And so the other feature was my voting feature, because we were like, okay, if we can gather a group of people that only vote, that only hold Alex, then we can maybe utilize that same crowd for voting on my life. And so Austin Griffiths did a personal voting kind of like developer framework. And he thought that was a great first use case. And we worked on it kind of like a hackathon, like for 3 days straight. And basically the first thing that I wanted to ask, so first I wanted to do something that was quite lightweight, because it's governance of a person. So I called it like control my life. It's kind of clickbait, but it was fun. And so I didn't want people to actually control my life. And so the first instance was my daily habit in July. And so people had to choose between I wake up at 6 a.m. every day. I jog 5 kilometers every single day in July. I stop eating red meat. And the fourth one is I solely live off Bitcoin, like paying everything in Bitcoin. And so, like I think over like $7,000 or $8,000 worth of Alex voted for running 5 kilometers, which makes sense, because it feels like my token holders went for the most painful of all of the habits. And I'm still doing this to this day. Like the challenge is almost over. This was just in July. And this was a very fun experiment. And the idea was, it's super easy to do this. Like people have just to sign. It's actually free. They do this with their wallet. In my case, people who have the Alex token, they are pretty experienced in crypto. So it was really easy for them. It was free. And it went pretty well. I'm not sure what other voting I will do in the future, but this was really cool. And I think it goes back to what I think Cooper and Bradley said. Like there's other things like DAOs or yield farming where there's governance, but really the simplest form right now is around one person, not one protocol, not a futuristic type of organization. Let's start simple. And today, one person is fine. And so I wrote the questions myself. I did just the voting thing, and it was really simple for people to understand. And I think this is key to advanced blockchain. It's like not show the people something that's too hard.
How do you document the fact that you're running every day?
So, in the group built by Abridged, where people have to have at least one token to enter that group, I post every single day my Strava link, where people can literally see, hey, I did 5 kilometers, broke my PR, like I'm so fast, and people congratulate me. So it's kind of like, it's a nice atmosphere because there's no haters, right? Everyone has Alex tokens, so they are all incentivized with me succeeding. And so the incentive is powerful here because it's a very positive group, and you don't get no haters, because the haters will follow you and give you hate comments, but they're not gonna buy your token. And so since they don't buy your token, I'm free of all my haters, and it's such a good feeling.
Oh, that's interesting. So, so it's a private network, right? It's token controlled access.
You have to buy one Alex. So, yeah.
I think just a really quick add-on to that, that no gas aspect of voting is really important and something that I really liked about his design. You know, right now in DAOs, we're seeing votes cost upwards of like $5 just to press yes or no on a transaction. But the way that Alex designed it, where it could basically just read what your token balance is and you can sign a message with no cost, is definitely like a trend which I think will be way more prevalent. You know, we're seeing Balancer right now do the same thing where they just read your token balance and you vote without a transaction cost. And whether it's like layer 2 stuff like XDAI or what Alex did with just signing, you know, trying to reduce the friction for people to be able to vote is super important, especially when it's kind of like more low-level decisions like this.
I guess, like in thinking about the social money in the game space, we've started to see the crossover into like sharding NFTs into ERC20 to almost create a new sort of celebrity asset social money. Have you guys been thinking much about this, Bradley? Have you been thinking about this with Roll?
Yeah, so there's over 60 artists on Roll that have their own social money. Some are like, you know, Connie Digital and lots of others. Lots of crossover with platforms like Super Rare and Async Art. And it's been really cool to think about how they integrate their social money in their work. So so that easy primitives are sort of this sort of cashback. So, you know, buying my NFTs and getting social money. We're even heading over to OpenSea and, you know, listing your social money as a way to purchase your work. When it comes to sort of sharding, we haven't necessarily seen that with NFTs in our world, but I think there's platforms I think like Niftex that kind of do that. So that idea is pretty interesting. We haven't investigated it too much, but we're very interested in what comes after social money actually, and it may be something like what they're doing. But yeah, haven't looked into sharding NFTs too much.
I saw last week the launch of is it Rarible and their platform, and it actually seemed like it was a pretty big success. I guess it's structured in a way where your actions, you get rewarded for buying and selling the different NFTs on this marketplace, and Rarible, Rari being a ERC20. I think it reminds me of Steemit back in 2017 and how Steemit launched and tried to reward bloggers. Do you think we're going to be seeing more of these incentivizations like put into platforms themselves so that I guess these economies are they kind of feel like a rabbit hole. So I'm curious if there's anything other than Rarible or that are starting to do these sort of like integrations.
Yeah, I think you know, Jesse Walden wrote this really awesome blog post. It's called The Ownership Economy, and it's really something that Alex and I talk about a lot. You know, when you think about crypto as a primitive and what makes it unique to what we've seen before, being able to sort of get a share in these products and in these companies just by using them is incredibly powerful. You know, Rarible being one example. So basically, if you buy art for someone or if you sell art as a creator, you got a kickback in the form of a token, and that token gives you direct governance over the evolution of that platform. And I think that primitive is something that we've seen a lot in DeFi with more sophisticated money markets. But what we have yet to see yet is that applying to a very basic platform or product level where people are just sort of getting kickbacks from simply using a product. There's not a high capital requirement to get started. And then theoretically over time, if we can build in ways to make people want to keep those tokens and use them as opposed to selling them, there's some really powerful network effects that can happen from basically the earliest users of a platform having larger voices in the future direction of where that goes.
Yeah, actually, I totally echo Cooper's words on I think NFT are great, but there's a problem with liquidity that I saw firsthand with Rocket, but now I'm seeing Niftex, and it's really interesting. And by the way, Marguerite, like, congratulations, because you did your personal token with Niftex, which is really fun. And so I'm really, like, there was a problem with NFT because it's either for a piece of art or something else, but now you're giving that ERC20 financial incentives like vibe to it. So super excited to see how it goes. And I think it's a big win for like artists, like for people like me, where it's mostly financial incentives. I might not need like pictures and things, but definitely see the use case for your own case. So super excited to see how your launch goes.
Thank you. With Coin, with my token, it's basically an extension of the brand to the community. And the way I'm thinking about it that I'd like to see is how you see this with other coins when people buy the coin and they join a community, they start contributing either in a marketing sense or even a development sense. I'm curious that if we can extend that same user behavior within a sort of a personal brand and gaming community. Alex, I'm curious, have you had anybody build anything for you to support Alex and your experience that is an Alex holder?
Well, yeah, so there was a bridge who built the chat. Austin Griffiths, I gave him some Alex to build the UI and to help me during that weekend. I paid Alex even for logos of announcements that I did. So I paid Alex for friends for drinks and stuff. So it's just such a diverse use case that can work for anything. And yeah, I've seen people just pitching me ideas all the time. A famous one is a basket of personal tokens, so that maybe if you, me, and a few others bundle each other, and so people just buy that bundle, and so it benefits all of us. So yeah, there's just countless ideas, and super excited to see what's next. And they might need maybe some standardizations around it, because right now everyone is doing its own thing. And so really looking forward to a standard model that could maybe make this thing scale beyond us right now. We're more at the pioneer stage. So we're really excited to see what our next phases are.
Yeah, Bradley, have you seen any really cool examples of the community members or holders contributing in creative ways?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what's happening with Karma is pretty interesting. So this idea of having a membership on a bonding curve, you could almost reimagine, members of platforms like OnlyFans or Patreon or Substack, kind of doing this. So we're having a few of those conversations. One thing I'm pretty interested in is just kind of getting more entrepreneurs into the space and just kind of think about this category and increase it. So, a lot of what we were doing is sort of building tools that enhance the overall social money ecosystem. So there are things we wouldn't fathom doing, like, creating social money for festivals, but there's an entrepreneur who, works with a bunch of festivals that wants to do that. So our role is sort of empowering those sorts of folks. There's now sort of artists in sort of the hip hop world and electronic world that we're going to work with soon, and esports as well. So that's generally been a more so of a focus, just sort of growing the overall pie and allowing people to sort of kind of have these modular settings as we go.
Yeah, I think,
go ahead, sorry. To add on to that, the Karma DAO example is really interesting because two things. One, so for people who don't know, Roll has a pretty standard issuance where every personal token has a supply of 10 million. But for Karma and what they did, they basically just, modified their own supply where they burned 90% of it to have this very small scarce supply to sort of kickstart that bonding curve model that Bradley was talking about. And then secondly, this personal token was applied to more of a group brand dynamic. So a lot of the times when we think about personal tokens, we think one individual, one person. But I think this becomes really interesting when we apply it to more of a generalized brand perspective. So it's not like the company is far enough along that they can do a seed round or something like that. But what they can do is issue a social currency that allows them to bootstrap their project without having to go through the extensive paperwork and legal hurdles to be able to do some capital formation at a very early stage.
One thing that I really like with the NFT space and it being, it's a commodity, is that for example, in the gaming applications, we can take the NFT and it can go through the game experience and accrue more metadata and become more unique. But with an ERC20, we can still do token controlled access features. So I love this idea of having these social influencers and being able to have online event experiences in which, in the game, you basically, now we can have an Alex game character, for example, in Neon District, just for anyone that owns the Alex token. Or maybe they can summon you as like a guardian to come and do one power move.
Already, actually, and I could have answered this with your previous question. Actually, yes, someone out of the blue just said, "Hey, I released the Alex game." Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of fun things you can do with these digital assets. And I was speaking to someone recently, Bradley, about musicians and how they're really struggling right now with because there's no events. So having access to online events or exclusive, trying to figure out how to make a new exclusive model so they can monetize better. This is something a lot of people are thinking about. And I know, Cooper, with your music label, you probably have a lot of thoughts here too, but Bradley, I'm curious, are any mainstream artists, are you talking to anybody in the mainstream music space?
Yeah. So I actually did an interview with Alex and another individual whose name is Ja Rule. And so we're going to be doing a sort of a few things with him and some other people that we connected with from the world of Vice. So there's a few music video directors and others, other folks as well. Although they're pretty traditional, what you see in sort of the artist space is they're very interested in the idea of controlling their work and the value around their work. So although they may not really understand sort of crypto and the primitives we're talking about, if you could sort of introduce this to them and the idea that they'll, sort of be in control of their community. And if they have, let's say, so, there's really only about I think 200 members in the Karma group right now. So you can sort of really understand this hyper growth model of getting your sort of passion economy, 20, 40, 50 fans together and just sort of creating this completely new Web3 model to monetize. So we're going to start experimenting with some pretty influential figures as early as in the next few weeks. So super excited to see how that goes, and we'll learn along the way, and the things we'll learn Ja Rule already just had an interesting idea yesterday. So it was this idea of I was just talking about karma with him, which is interesting. So just the idea of so karma right now is one group, and this idea that should there be multiple permissioned groups using the same token effectively. So you could imagine the same bonding curve, but 5, 6, 7, 8 different groups. So kind of thinking about that a little more. But yeah, talking to some folks that are up there, and I think we'll learn a lot. Sort of pushing this model as far as we can, and just sort of writing and publishing our conclusions.
I'm so curious how you got that intro to Ja Rule.
So it was through a fund manager a long time ago. There's too many weird people on the edges of Roll. And so what I've actually just started doing is I just had to start a podcast. It's something I wanted to do for a while. And so just having a bunch of people on there that you wouldn't even know are into crypto, that they're just kind of waiting for a certain moment. So one of my favorites is Andrew Camphy. So Andrew is the person that writes about influencer marketing. If you were to search influencer marketing newsletter, his newsletter comes up, Influencer Weekly. And so he just pinged us, and we're gonna kind of do something with him, and that's amazing. It's just completely outside of the spectrum of what we'd ever thought. So having folks like that is awesome, and I think we'll see more mainstream folks probably entering the space in this way in the next, let's say, 6 months.
Yeah, Cooper, we were talking yesterday about the gamification of having a almost esports experience where you could bet on celebrities or individuals and actions they're doing on chain. And then you shared that you've actually built something like this, especially with the music space. And I think it'd be cool to share.
Yeah, for sure. So there was a hackathon recently called Hack Money. Me and a couple of people teamed up to basically explore this idea of how can you invest in artists at a very early stage. So we took this protocol called UMA, which allows you to make synthetic assets, and we basically tied them to Spotify popularity scores. So basically every artist on Spotify has a score from 1 to 100 that dictates how well they're doing on the platform. And what we did is we tokenized those scores that allowed people to basically say, I want to buy a share in this artist when they're at a popularity score of 10, because I believe by next month they'll be at a popularity score of 50. Then on the other side of that, someone could say, this artist sucks. I think that they're terrible, so I'm going to short them by buying their popularity score when it's super high, and then make money when they fall off in the coming months. So just cool primitives like that, I think it's something that are really, really unique with tokens and sort of what's going on in Web3. I'm super curious to hear how we can have more of these sort of gamified markets where you can really just capitalize off your specialized knowledge or off curation in some capacity.
Awesome. Well, we are getting to the last 15 minutes, and I wanted to touch on maybe some of the mistakes that we might have seen in this young space so far. Bradley, have any of these personal tokens just been bad ideas for one reason or another?
Well, I think to make a YouTube analogy, like if anyone, I think what's happening right now is like, you know, anyone who wanted to create a YouTube channel in the past 10 years did. Anyone that wants to create a token in the next 10 years will. You're going to have channels that, you know, have 0 subscribers, and you're going to have PewDiePies. And we're starting to really see that range. So of course, you're going to see moonshots like an Alex or a Kerman or a Karma, and you're definitely going to see duds. And then Roll's model is interesting because we sort of have this YC level kind of stake in a lot of these communities. I think one thing we learned is, you know, Roll at the beginning when we announced it, it was, you could sort of consider it like one medium-sized T-shirt that, you know, we wanted to see if people would wear the shirt, right? Would people use and adapt social money? And so now there's a lot of people wearing the same medium-sized T-shirt. So the question is, what's next? And it's obviously changing the sizes, designs, colors, and decentralizing the underlying protocol. So we're going to enter a world in which you may receive a plethora of tokens just by owning a part of the Roll protocol. And so, in retrospect, this is probably something we should have done sooner. But we were sort of the first ones to dive in and do this, so we didn't really have the data to see that it would be successful. But yeah, one thing I probably would have done is decentralize sooner. Like if I were starting Roll now, I'd do that now. But you know, yeah.
Are you thinking about? Do you have currently a curation process for who you allow to mint? And then also, is that something where the community could vote on?
Yeah, so that's where the future's heading, right? So right now, me and my co-founder Sid, right? So if like you know, some hip hop guy approaches us or someone like we'll like Sid and I will make the decision to mint. In a future state of Roll, there'll be sort of a DAO-like environment where if you don't want to vote every few minutes, someone wants to mint, you could perhaps delegate that responsibility to, you know, the team. But we want to enter a situation in which all of those decisions are sort of made by the community. We see that as sort of the future state of the product, as well as a sort of Chipotle style menu for people to decide what they want to do. Who am I to say that a frat at USC that wants to issue Toga tokens for their party on Saturday should mint, you know, 10 million on a 3-year vesting schedule? They want to mint 100 tokens and give 50 to the best dressed and, you know, 20 to incentivize people to show up. But the concept of the entire web kind of being able to participate in this is new and exciting. So yeah, those are just sort of a few learnings. Decentralized earlier, I think Kane wrote a really good tweet storm about this the other day. Yeah, those are sort of the key learnings, I'd have to say.
Alex, with you being so successful with your token and being, I guess, in the spotlight, have you hit any problems with regulation?
No, no mistakes, it's learnings, and no problem with regulations. I think it's fine. Like only one of my experiments involved like some kind of income claims, but the rest was really about my potential, my community, the chat room, and I've done many tries actually that didn't work. But when it doesn't work, people just don't hear about it. They just remember the successes. So it's totally fine. And no, I'm doing this very carefully on my income claim, and everything is going perfectly well. No problem. There were some people, but like it's just like I have a big visibility, and this is why like people were concerned. But actually, most of the people that I talked to afterwards, they're like, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, this isn't like ICOs which were unreasonable, I guess. So everything is completely fine, and so yeah, no problem so far. I guess it's really early though. We might see some problems, maybe some scammers or other bad actors, but I'm counting on Roll to filter out the great token to mint. And so that due diligence will prevent people from bad investment. And so far the space has been actually very, very good. Like I haven't seen any bad actors. It's all with good intent, and we're just trying to do something completely new, which is why sometimes it doesn't fit the previous mold, but it doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. It means we are creating a new one.
Alex, I have a question. Oh, sorry, Marguerite.
I was just going to ask, does it matter your distribution? Does that how much of the token you hold, if I'm the token, like if it's my token, or distribution, do any of those things matter when it comes to regulation? Is there a right way to approach that?
Is it for me or Bradley? Well, for me, so I did like an initial Alex offering, which was with 1 million Alex tokens. And so the entire rest that you can see on Uniswap, that you can trade on, speculate on, is not part of it. And so it's part of all my other experiments, and there's countless of them, like voting on my life, the group chat, the newsletter that I'm doing. So all of these, there's no income claims or anything. And so you do not get any income claims. It's all about the initial raw value prop, which is the community stake. And so for that 1 million token, I'm doing my payout actually in 3 days, and it's a special kind. I actually issued NFTs to differentiate the Alex token from income claim from the other, so that it's kind of clear to know which camp you are on. And so, yeah. So people buying Alex right now, they're buying it for all the other experiments. And actually, funny enough, like it's also going up, probably even more up than my income claim. So that's either way I'll find, and the way to find it to find my token right now is Uniswap and Balancer, and it's been working pretty well so far.
Yeah, Bradley, I guess, have you seen any problems with this, or?
No, really. I just really had a question for Alex. Yeah. So how have you? I'm curious how you've dealt with the visibility of what you've done. I mean, you've been covered globally. Barstool Sports covered you. Do you, like, at this point, do you consider yourself like a new type of public figure that has sort of a new feature set?
I'm not that famous.
No, you know what I mean, like a new sort of digital figure. That like how do you think about where you are right now and what you're doing?
Yeah, it's definitely super useful because I can monetize it as a consultant, saying I'm like a marketer. And also for my startup or whatever startup I do next, it's really useful. And we've seen, like, for instance, Ryan Selkis from Messari or others leverage their public facing persona for their own company. And so it's definitely going to be an asset for my next venture. And I will surely utilize it. I'm just not sure if my next venture is going to be about personal tokens in itself, but definitely we'll use this. And yeah, like I'm just riding the wave of, like I have a secret projects with like one of the associate of Mark Cuban, like the famous entrepreneur. And so, yeah, like everything is super cool. Like I'm enjoying some famous people noticing that I exist, and that's really fun. Yeah.
I mean, Cooper, you just wrote like 3 articles yesterday, and as we're closing up, what are the latest things that you were just covering in the space?
Yeah, so I think you touched on it before. What's going on with Wire, and it's super interesting right now, just community governance. Today, Augur launched a new prediction market, which is really fascinating. And then sort of a more generalized trend, you know, Alex touched on doing a liquidity mining program for Alex. And I think that a lot of different projects are trying to figure out how to incentivize people to contribute to their ecosystem and get involved with their tokens. So definitely just keeping a very close eye on what's going on
there. If you guys have any questions for each other, we have like 5 minutes left, or if there's questions from the community. It looks like, Alex, any opinion on how Spencer Dinwiddie's did his token sale?
Yeah, I think he did it the right way. It's a very large amount, and so you have to go through security laws and things like this. And it's like a token from, I think, his salary as a basketball player. But I do think maybe Bradley is more qualified to answer, as Spencer Dinwiddie is involved with Roll.
Yeah. So Spencer's a Roll investor. I think he did it the right way. So Spencer's brilliant. He's probably the most brilliant athlete when it comes to Web3. Probably him and the football player Russell Okung. And yeah, you know, he's been thinking about it for years. I think he used the Securitize platform, and he has his own product out there. He'd be an awesome guest if you're interested. I could ping him for if you guys want to chat. But yeah, he has his own venture right now that I think he announced called Fan Shares, and specifically geared towards more athletes doing it. So he's on a team with some pretty influential athletes like Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving. So I think you could expect some interesting things from what he's doing. And yeah, he absolutely did it the right way.
Awesome. Well, I'm not seeing any other questions come in from the community. So I just want to say thank you, everybody, for coming together. If anybody has any last minute thoughts or I guess announcements or projects you're going to be pushing out, if you want to take a minute to share, you're welcome to.
Well, what's your announcement, Margaret, with your token? What is the first thing? Is it like a cosplay like choice?
Yeah, well, no, so in about 2 weeks, we'll be launching the token on Niftex. But I've distributed some of it already to existing community members, people that have invested in Blockade. In small amounts, it's actually pretty evenly distributed. The largest holders are, Cooper's actually one of them to help with the tokenomics. And then we have 2 developers that are building tooling for Discord and to connect some of the Web3 tools directly into the Discord so the community can have incentives and reward programs as where they already engage. So the token is coin, and I guess what you're talking about with the cosplay, so I'm known for making crypto puzzles, and I'm making a new like cyberpunk themed puzzle. I just did a pre-sale for it as a token NFT. The art is going to be replaced with the puzzle image. So the image itself will have the private key encoded in some sort of way. You will have to solve it, and then you also have to own the NFT in order to claim the prize. The prize it's actually 2 ships. We're working with a game called Dissolution. They've made 2 custom ships for us, which is really cool. And then we'll have an amount of coin up for grabs as well. And it going out alongside the token launch should be pretty exciting because I don't know if the token will be valuable or not, but at least it'll be on the market.
Nice, awesome.
Marguerite, what's next for Blockade Games?
Thank you so much.
Yeah, what was that, Bradley?
Oh, no, I was just curious what's next for Blockade Games, if you had a minute.
Yeah, we're rolling out the assets on Matic Network right now. So August 15th, those will all be tradable, Neon District assets. And then end of September, you'll be able to compose these assets into characters. So Neon District being an RPG, it's all about character development and building. We have over thousands of our assets. Each character consists of 5 tokens that you compose into this NFT. And then in December, we'll have PvP on web and mobile friendly, which will be pretty cool with your characters. And they change their stats and everything changed. Like I was describing earlier, the experience of NFTs and their ability to track metadata. So that's what we're playing with Blockade. And also, I mean, obviously trying to learn about the DeFi space and how to incorporate it more into these assets now that they can participate in the DeFi with DeFi, because recently we saw an Axie Infinity asset as well as others go up. They were sharded. And they started out, I think, at a 40 ETH valuation prior to being sharded. And then after the sharding, I'm pretty sure, I know Alex is in the chat, or Silly Tuna, he could probably tell exactly, but it went up to over 1,000 ETH in value from that shared ownership. So, and that's because some of the game assets are just collectible in nature, being their addition, they have their sentimental value. And so, people, obviously it's a demand. I mean, you wouldn't see that kind of action unless there was a demand there. So how do we incorporate it in a way that doesn't take away from the gaming experience, but also is bridging with the DeFi world that is larger? You know, NFT space is really niche. So how do we pull more users together that are just already showing interest?
For sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Yeah, guys. Thank you so much. And thanks everybody for watching. And thanks for giving me my 101.
Have a good one, guys.
Have a good day. Bye.
Thank you.